All right, I wanted to talk about a project that we used for CMGC that we felt like was kind of representative of this price range. It was a kind of this one was a $18 million construction value price project. It's I-15 northbound. I-15 is the main thoroughfare through the Salt Lake Valley. 106 South is the interchange improvement we're going to do. The 106 South area at I-15 is a extremely busy, congested interchange. If you'll see, I think you can see my mouse here, I hope.
Yeah.
This area over here is Southtown Mall. It's very large, very expansive mall, lots of retail, lots of business in this whole interchange area. What we were seeing on this project was that people were coming northbound, and north is to the right here. This is I-15, you can see just a corner of. This is the off-ramp for 106 South going this way. What we were having is some pretty serious congestions, backing up onto I-15 even, when people would queue up at this left turn lane, trying to get into the Southtown Mall, waiting and then merging across multiple lanes, or trying to merge across multiple lanes and get to this roadway that leads into the mall. So in conjunction with the city, who was building this roadway piece over here, we ran through the project and decided it would be best to try to divert that specific traffic that was to the mall through their own tunnel that would lead through and then drop off into the mall area and continue on to 102nd and 90th South. So that was the problem. That was the issue. We were having MOT issues. We were having lots of problems, but extremely congested road all the time. We were trying to figure out ways we could build this, get this tunnel in place without affecting traffic or the minimal impact traffic. This project actually began its life as a design build project, and it was mainly so that we could facilitate the schedule. Like I said, a high retail area. They were looking to try to get the project built before Black Friday of the first year it was going to go out. Come to find out, as they started beginning some of the original designs, that there were multiple risks that the department really needed to have input and to own all the way through 100% design. Those included things like MOT, which, obviously I've already cited and talked about. There was also a groundwater and drainage issue in this area that was really kind of unique that we didn't see almost anywhere else here. Not sure if it was a spring or something else that was popping up in this area, because the river bottom was actually a little farther west for this project. There's also many utility conflicts, and we had right-of-way issues throughout the project. The property owner of the mall and their property manager, we had to deal with and needed to be able to work through some of their issues that they had. So as the team started realizing that, hey, this design build may not be the best procurement method for this project, they kind of put it on hold a little bit, went and held a procurement method risk workshop, in that they sat and talked about all the methods. Should we send this out design bid build? Do we send this out design build? Do we send it out, CMGC? We looked at any possible approach as how we could do it. And after a very lengthy discussion with multiple people in the department, it was determined that we should switch this to a CMGC. Now, the CMGC procurement schedule, we send out a mandatory request for letter of intent in April, followed up 6 weeks later with the RFP went out. So after we received the letters of intent back a couple weeks after that first date, sent out the RFP and had proposals due about another 6 weeks after that. And then we announced selection on July 18th. First thing I want to talk about with this is during pre-construction, we have what we call the opinion of probable construction cost, or OPCCs. It's that break you stop and take at various design milestones and check and make sure your price is how you're doing on price with the different groups. We have, as been mentioned before, on like Mike's project and others, we had hired an ICE, an independent cost estimator. We had the designers that were providing their estimate, but as was mentioned earlier this morning, those are all historically based. Our ICE was the productions-based estimate, and then the contractor puts in their estimate as well. We had these meetings at the date shown here in mid-November, mid-December, end of January. This project had a goal of, Mike discussed on his project, he had a goal of being within 5%. This one selected a goal to be within 7.5% of the estimate. So what we do when we go to each one of these milestones is we have the contractor, the ICE, and the designer all submit their estimates to our central construction, to me, basically, and my folks. We take and we do a triple blind on those bids and produce a sheet that looks like this. This isn't from that project actually, but it's very similar. So we produce a document that looks somewhat like this. It's obviously much more extensive, but I wanted you to be able to read it, so I kind of truncated it. What we do is we have two columns that are comparing the CMGC to the ICE and the CMGC to the engineer's estimate. So this is now triple blinded. Literally, the designer doesn't know what the engineer's estimate or the CMGC's estimate, who doesn't know what the ICE's estimate is. The only people who know what the actual full numbers are the project manager. So in US 89, it was Mike's case. It was Mike, me, and our facilitator that we have hired that works for me. Those people know the full prices, and they use that knowledge to kind of steer and guide conversations. We also have this column, the percent of CMGC total, that helps us kind of point out the things that are the big ticket items. That's 2.84% or 64% of the total budget. So we'll focus on the big ones that are within the range, outside the range. Now the ranges, we call this our Christmas tree. Green says it's within range, so it's within that 0 to 5% range typically. Yellow is a caution, that's 5% to 10% within each other. And then red is 10% or greater outside each other. So we're able to go through and start talking about the things that are really, I think, important on these projects, which is means and methods, equipment, manpower, all the other things that actually build up to a bid, except for price. We don't discuss price. So they went through those four, they went through those four OPCCs and were able to bring the price in to within that acceptable range, and were able to construct that project. Now, part of what we select them on, let me go back one actually before I go there. Part of what we selected them on was their innovations and the ideas about how they wanted to solve that problem. How do we keep traffic going or minimize the impact of traffic and build a tunnel under a major interchange that has drainage and utility issues? So the contractor was selected. We decided to go CMGC because we wanted this kind of input. And what intrigued us about their proposal was they discussed having the idea of sliding a box into place. So they built the first quarter of it while traffic was being maintained, and then working with the contractor's help and with all our stakeholders, we're able to negotiate the ability to close that interchange for 16 days. So we were able to shut down the interchange to allow that bridge to be slid within 16 days. And the contractor, through all the details and work with our designer, were able to assure us that they would be able to tear that section, 3/4 of that movement out, and then slide a box in place, build it back up, and have traffic back open within 16 days. And this 16 days was going to happen and end up right before Black Friday. And so we could open it back up to the retailers. It was that, or it was going to be under construction in some variation for up to 6 to 8 months. So, like I said, MOT, they had the discussion. The risk management that we were involved in was the closure of 106 South. Like I said, I've covered some of that. We already talked about, mitigating it with the local stakeholders, businesses, local residents, and all the businesses that are there in place. And they also came to the conclusion or figured out a way to mitigate the groundwater issues that they had come across. Something else that's some of the advantages of CMGC, and it wasn't this one, these two items I wanted to talk about weren't necessarily on this project, but it's something we look for when we're deciding whether a project should be CMGC or not. One of the advantages is having early procurement items. They've been talked about here as the GMPs in some of the progressive design builds. It's kind of something similar. So we will hire a CMGC or a contractor early to be able to acquire some long lead items. So if we know we need to build a bridge and steel is going to be a difficult thing to come by, as it has been historically, we can hire somebody, do some quick early design to get steel with girders designed, and then we can order it to be able to hit schedules that we need to be able to achieve. Another one is early work products. One of our projects, Black Rock project out in Salt Lake Valley also, the area that they were working in, the soils were kind of poor soils. And it was going to take 6 or 8 months to get some of the settlements out. So we hired a CMGC contractor. We had them order some of the steel, and we also had them go and place surcharge in those areas that we would have while we continued on with design. So some of these long lead items, some of the things that we could quickly determine what the need was, we're able to do that, and then with the contractor's assistant, get some of these things taken care of ahead of time. Other details, there's been discussions about the off-ramp. Talk about that for just a minute. In UDOT's experience, we have never exercised the off-ramp option with a contractor. We have done over 54 we've done 54 design build or CMGC projects. And we've come very close on several of them, almost having to exercise that off-ramp. And if anything, that has been one of the lessons learned that if I could put out to this group is one of the things we need to do, and we have started doing for UDOT. So whenever we have somebody approach us for a CMGC potential project, the first thing we start delving into is their budget, because what we're finding is that CMGC, and I think it was mentioned earlier this morning, CMGC is not going to get you a low bid price. CMGC is going to get a best value price, and so a lot of times what we'll see is we're going through and you learn more about the project as you go through design, have the contractor's input. The folks start seeing their estimates just continue to climb and climb and climb. And there's that concern that from some, not very many, but from some, there's a concern that the contractor is just adding things in just to increase the price for themselves. What we're finding though is we understand is the more you know about things, sometimes they cost more. So our lesson learned is making sure that the project is properly funded, that our concept plans have been updated, their estimates have been updated, and they've been updated as best possible with the information available using production-based type estimate, so that we don't get this surprise a week before or 2 weeks before we're about to bid open that we don't have the money we need to be able to open the bids. So that's one of my suggestions. If anybody who's doing this, make sure you review your concept. Make sure you understand that you have the money a year from now to be able to award this project. The other one is severability. Severability is what was discussed earlier also. We talked about being able to have these early packages, things like I talked about earlier, like the settlement issues. The contractor can go in, place the soil, and they're done. That contract is finished. Any contractor at that point can come on and scrape off the amount of dirt they need to and be able to finish building around. If they order the steel, The steel goes with the design. It doesn't go with the contractor. So that we can, these things can be done, taken care of. And if we need to exercise that off ramp, we aren't pressured into a corner saying, oh, you know, they've done this for us, we can't cut now because they have too much information on their side, or they have this tie-in that we can't break in any other way. All these projects, all these little early packages, we call them, have to be severable. Another thing is fair market value. Now, I talked about that earlier, but having fair market value at bid time is what we expect. We're gonna see a fair market value at bid time. It's not the low price, as I mentioned. However, what we're noticing is that with contracts where we're taking them out CMGC, we're seeing fewer with lower cost change orders going through the project. So you have to measure success. You have to decide where you want to measure your success. Is it a bid opening date, or is it as you close out the project? Because I'm thinking that as you close out the project, you're going to be a lot closer to the same number you would have if you'd gone design bid build. And with that, I think that's about it. Project was completed in 2017. Excuse me. The bridge was slid into place. Contractor had 16 days to have that ramp closed, or that movement closed. They finished the work in 14. So it all went really well. If I have, all right, a minute here, I'm gonna see if, my next slide has a link to a time-lapse video. Now, these are hard enough to do when we're all in person. So I was going to take a shot at this and see if it works. If it doesn't, that's great. But this is a 1 minute, literally 60 plus seconds time-lapse video of this bridge being, or this box being slid into place. It was, at the time, it was only, we did a little bit of research, and at the time back then, it was one of the first 5 box slides of this size in the United States. So CMGC also helped us, you know, move this successfully. I may need your help. Joe, let me try and see if I can make this work.
Yep.
Let me try and see if I can make this. If I can, it's a really cool video, and I can put a link to it. So
let's do it.
Here we go.
Yep.
Let me see where that went. Can you see my screen? Or are you still seeing the original one?
No, it went to the web page. Yep.
Very good. Let's see if it actually loads and works.
Yep.
You can hear me. That's some of the drainage issues they were solving.
Yep.
Placing the new flooring and the railing system, the slide system.
Very good.
And this is them moving the box.
That's cool. Awesome.